Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia. Welcome back to another preview video for the upcoming Amazon's DLC for Total War Troy. And here we're taking a look at Penthesilia's skill tree and character detail. So, jumping right in, Penthesilea is one of the new epic heroes and faction leaders in the upcoming DLC, and she has some interesting campaign effect aside from mechanics such as Horde. And namely, she has this thing called Amazon Pride. And Amazon Pride allows you to regain 30% of your campaign movement after raising a settlement. So technically, you can keep moving after raising settlements, whereas before, that would be the end of your turn. It really allows you to reposition a bit in case you're facing tough enemies after a tough battle where you had to beat down a settlement. And the downside of this ability or trait is that none of the armies can be reinforced, and this applies to all the Horde armies of Penthesilea, not just her own. And she's once again a Homeric character, which means she can never get killed, she can only be wounded, and her lineage, with her father being Ares and her mother being Ortera, the bonus is basically 10% extra favor with Ares and 10% to battle speed of the hero herself. And most of this guide will be focused around skill tree, but before we dive into that, we can also take a look at your starting equipment. You only start out with your helm, which is a 10% boost to morale for all units when you're attacking, and a 3 points of melee defense to the hero. And this is a full face helmet that conceals her great beauty, and this has to do with Aphrodite's curse on her that cursed her to become violated by any men she met, so she wore disguise to cover herself to prevent that curse from happening. But of course, we know that when Achilles ended up killing her and removing her helmet, her beauty or her curse took over, and he violated her dead body. A bit unfortunate, but Greek stories tend to be a bit tragic and crazy by modern day standards, so we'll look past that. And what we have here in terms of the skill tree is very similar to the base game. You have 14 skills, max level is still 27. You get a choice of either side, and oftentimes, once you pick the side, you have a choice between certain abilities after that for a total of 26 choices. Thus, you have max level 27 since you do start out at level 1. And at rank 1, you start out with the Vanquish ability. And if you can look at the symbols here, Penthesilea is basically a fighter general in the game. So that's why you start out with Vanquish. If these are covered in the base game, I'm not going to waste too much time on them. There's a few unique ones that are added in for her, but aside from that, Vanquish does the same thing. It's a self boost and also ally boost, and everyone will gain extra charge bonus and speed, and that's pretty much it. Once you hit level 2, you have the choice between Blood of Hercules and Embrace of Ares. Blood of Hercules is another self boost that will give you 45 seconds of increased melee attack, and that can be boosted farther to give you additional speed, or you can have a faster cooldown on the ability. On the other hand, Embrace of Ares gives you a different self boost in terms of weapon damage and also all allies nearby, and it's a shorter duration, only 20 seconds, but I believe the 15% weapon damage is actually better than the 50% melee attack. This is a hit rate issue and this is a damage issue. If you have other ways to boost melee attack, which there are plenty, and there's really no point to max this out beyond 80%-ish. It's pretty good at that point, but increase in weapon damage is actually much better in my opinion, and plus this is only a self boost, whereas this also boosts allies in range. And then you can upgrade this farther with the additional charge speed, 30%, which kind of makes up for this version here, which increases your overall speed. And then you have the block chance, which will give you 30% additional missile parry if you have a shield. So your 40% units will turn into 70%, and your 60% blocking units will turn into 90%. So that's quite strong as well. If you're fielding cavalries and she can eventually be on horse herself, you can activate this leading a charge of your heavy cavalries, which have 60% range block chance, and you'll be at 90%, which makes you pretty much invincible to enemy range. And you yourself have 60% at the start with your shield, despite it looking like one of the smaller 40% shields. We just have a better variant of it. And then at rank 3, we have the choice between Bloodthirst and Heroic Spirit. Bloodthirst gives you passive rage gain, which is quite useful depending on what skills we take later on in the skill tree. If we are focused on having active abilities which require rage, this is a must-have, and this will give us more rage gain and just an increased amount, and there's no choice, so basically you're going to get this. Heroic Spirit, on the other hand, gives you extra morale. 10 points morale. This doesn't feel as good because you already have pretty decent morale on your heroes, and oftentimes you're not really worried about your epic hero routing in battle. And then this can be upgraded to become Unbreakable, which, you know, kind of makes this redundant in a sense. And then this gives you Frightens nearby enemy. This is what's good. You trigger fear, and that might be the only reason you might consider going down this route if you're not using your rage for your later abilities. Moving on, Ambassador of Hermes and Drill Expert. So Ambassador of Hermes gives you fatigue reduction on all unit in your army. That's actually quite good, especially if you're running cavalry. And then this can be additionally granted, as in you have another layer of fatigue reduction. Or you can have Always Fresh, and this means if you are raiding on the field or if you are marching, you will still enter the battle fresh. And that's actually a pretty big advantage, I have to say. So this is also quite attractive because you already get some nice fatigue reduction, and you can switch over to Always Fresh, especially if you raid a lot. That way your unit doesn't come into the battle tired. On the other hand, you have Drill Expert, which will increase 1 rank to all new recruits. This is pretty useful if you think about how Initiation Rite works, because you need rank 4 to upgrade to the 2nd tier and rank 5 to upgrade to the final tier. So by giving your units extra rank when you recruit them, you can reduce the amount of time they spent as a basic unit and work their way up to a more advanced unit. And this can be increased farther for two-handed axe units or two-handed weapons in general, so that's two-handed spear as well. The axe is just part of the image, which is the main bulk of Penthesilea's army. Actually, Amazon Charger and Warband are both two-handed units. Or you can have missile units, which is more Hippolyta playstyle, because your variations of your range units is not that strong. Skirmishers are okay, but the stone throwers really goes nowhere. Then moving on to rank 5, Famous Hero. This gives reduced recruitment costs for all units in the army. I tend to not get these cost reduction ones because I feel like if you have a stronger army, through other bonuses, you can just make more money and you don't really care about the one-time recruitment cost discount. Then you can have reduced cost for Initiation Rites. Now, Initiation Rite is the upgrade process, and it does cost quite a bit of resources if you guys dig into it. A couple thousand food, or at least 1,500 food, and some of them cost quite a bit of gold as well. So reducing costs may be useful, but like I said, I prefer to just get stronger armies or make more money rather than reducing cost. And then we can have reduced cost of missile units. I don't know why you would ever go for this as Penthesilea, because missile is not your strength, and getting Initiation Rites, if you go down this route, is probably the better choice. The other choice is Despoilers, which will give you extra income from raising, which is huge because raising is your economy. You can only raise settlements. There's no choice as a horde faction. So this seems to be the go-to option for me. And then you can increase this farther by another 10%, or you can increase more favor. So favor obviously can be gained about 600 from ore spoil. So another 15% of 600, if you do the math there, is interesting enough another 90 points, which means you'll be wasting about 40 points because favor only max out at 650, and each ore spoil favor is 600 points. So you're actually wasting a bunch here. I don't know why they made this 15%, because 10% would have done it. 10% would have been wasting 10 points already. Technically, if you do the math, 600, if you want 50 more, it's like about 8.33%, I think. But regardless, this one feels a bit wasteful. Typically, I think you want to just capture a favored war spoil settlement and then immediately Hecatomb to max it out. So I don't know why this would be a good option. So getting 10% extra plus the income feels much better. Additionally, once we get to rank 6, we have Divine Challenge, which is a dueling. You force the enemy general to fight you one-on-one, 45 seconds, or you can extend that to 90 seconds, or you can debuff their armor in the same 45 seconds. Both are great options. Maybe the debuff armor is even better, because let's say you only fight 45, you don't kill them, but because of debuff armor, you injure them a lot more. It's better than stalling out in a long 90-second fight. So that's kind of the options I would pick here for Divine Challenge if we go down this route. The other route is more of boosting route. So here we have Song of Battle, which will boost ourselves for 20 seconds, and it will give us faster attack. So 50% faster attack intervals, and then we will lose some melee defense on this. So more of an aggressive move here. It's pretty good in my opinion, because you do have some heavier weapons, which we'll see very soon, that will lower your attack speed, and this will definitely boost your DPS by making your attack intervals much faster, in case you're not interested in dueling, because dueling requires you to be dismounted. So if you're going down, a mounted route, maybe you don't want it. Maybe you just want to boost yourself. And then the second one is a boost of charging speed or a boost of extra melee attack. So this is kind of a hit rate boost, and this is more of a charging bonus. So like I said, if we're on horseback, this would be the way to go. We will forgo Divine Challenge, get Song of Battle, and come over here for the charge bonus. Then moving on, we have Heavy Weapon, which we just talked about. The Heavy Weapons gives you 30% extra armor piercing damage. This one's great, there's no drawback. But once you come here, you get another 30% damage, but you will gain 1 second to your attack speed. So you hit a little bit slower, so you can see the image here on the left showing that damage will decrease. Damage is DPS over 10 seconds. So it's kind of just saying that you will hit harder per hit, but you get less hit in 10 seconds, so your damage drops. But really your total damage output per hit is still pretty high. And especially if we have something that will help us reduce our attack interval, this will be softened up, and we'll still do a lot more damage. Conversely, we can go with Enemy of the Chians. This is basically focused on if we're helping Troy all the way, and we're going to be fighting all the Dinan factions, which are all the Chian factions, all the Greeks, and we'll get 15 points of melee attack when fighting against those factions for your hero. So only Penthesilea will hate them, and you can upgrade this to additional 150 damage when fighting against Agamemnon's faction in particular, or Achilles' faction. So this is really depends on how the game state evolves. If you don't go for heavy weapons, which I actually don't know why you wouldn't, this feels actually very strong. And if you want to just commit to fighting the Chians in a sense, kind of narrows your game option, and you can see who confederated who, because sometimes Agamemnon would confederate Achilles, or Achilles would confederate Agamemnon, and then you can pick accordingly at that point to get a bonus against a bigger faction. Now, sometimes maybe Odysseus confederated both of them, and then you're stuck with nothing here. So in a sense, I think heavy weapons is pretty good. And then moving on to rank 8, we have Discipline of Ares, or the Nomad's Way. Discipline of Ares is a charge bonus one. Gives your whole army extra charge. So that's actually pretty good. And then you can also get a specialized version for two-handed weapons, additional 10%, or for shielded units. But I think here, probably two-handed infantry, just because we're playing as Penthesilea. Or we can go the Nomad's Way, which will increase 50% experience received from all battle for all units. I think this is a must-have for the initiation rite, playing as the Amazon factions, because you need rank ups on your units to upgrade them to make them much more effective. You need at least 4 ranks for basic units, and then you need 5 ranks for the second tier. So this feels like the way to go here, despite the fact that this is a great bonus. And then you can have extra experience for Missile Troop, which I feel is pointless for Penthesilea, and this one's for Cavalry, which I feel like is the way to go here. Now, of course, you can break the mold and not play Cavalry and play tier 2 archers all the way. You can do that, but I don't know why you would do that. Now, moving on, we have Collector, which gives us extra treasure looted after battle. That will be upgraded to extra battle captives taken. Quite nice. It's always nice to get more income this way, especially since we are a faction that particularly battles a lot because we are a horde faction. Or we can go with Master Ambusher, which will increase the chance of our ambushes and also our chance to evade ambushes. Pretty good in a way. And then we can have increased morale and happiness, reduce happiness of enemy provinces. I feel like that's pretty gimmicky. We're not really trying to convert any land. Anything we fight razes down to the ground anyways, so it doesn't really matter. And then finally we have this one here that will give us extra charge when we are ambushing, and extra melee attack when we're ambushing, which is quite good. If you plan to take a more ambush route, this would be the way to go. If you're raiding all the time, getting a horde resources and just fighting armies your way, not scared of them, then the collector would be the way to go. And you might actually balance between the two a little bit, because if you think about it, you're not going to be able to reinforce. So oftentimes ambush would be a great solution when the enemy has a clump of units together, as you can pick them off one by one in a way by using the master ambusher here. So I would still kind of recommend this option, especially going with the extra charge on your units. After you pull off the ambush, your cavalry can make close range charges on unsuspecting enemies and pick them off easily. Then we have a choice of prayers. Athena will boost shielded defense or melee defense first, and then I think there's, oh, never mind, it's not a shield bonus. It's just overall melee defense, which is evasion rate, and then 20% to melee defense of blood sworn units, which are the units you can spawn with your Blood Oath faction mechanic. They are basically your second army that will reinforce you, and 20% is pretty big, so it's not bad. And then you can have also extra melee defense during siege, which is a frequent thing for you because you will be raising down tons of settlements. So this is also a very good choice. On the other hand, you can gain attack by praying to Ares, and then you can get 5% extra melee attack for all units during siege battle, which once again, very useful because you'll be fighting tons of sieges. Or you can just increase your Blood Oath or Bloodsworn units' Blood Oath ability. Pretty much the opposite of each other, defense, offense. Depends on how the game evolves. By first instinct, I feel like Penthesilea is probably more of an offensive character, especially since the bonus on the Bloodsworn units, which are the ones you don't really care about getting injured, because you're summoning them from ability and you're not keeping them. Whereas if this was on your regular units that you're hoping to rank up and level up, then maybe the defense is good. And moving on, we have Terrify and Ares Thunder. Terrify just gives you the Terrify ability, causes terror, hurts enemy morale, 30 points. It's huge, and it's very powerful. Or you can come down here to get a increased range on the ability, affect a bigger group of enemies, or you can have a melee defense debuff on top of that. Both are good. I think this is probably a little bit stronger because you'd be left with only the strong units that doesn't rout after you hit them with 30 morale debuff, and then additional 15 points melee defense to hurt those units. Definitely help you whittle them down. And here, just increased range is not that useful. It doubles the range. Sure, you can affect more enemies, but you can easily clump the enemy together to hit the same effect with this, but then you get additional melee defense on top of that. Ares Thunder is a bit different. Here we have ability once again around self, affecting enemies in range. It just tanks their melee defense straight up, and you can add a little bit of morale component to it, or you can decrease their armor as well. So of the two, I prefer Terrify. Morale is basically a HP hit, and it's very strong. You still have to kill them after lowering their melee defense, whereas this, oftentimes they will rout, and your cavalry can just chase them down. Speaking of cavalry, we come to the choice here where we can decide if we want to be on horseback. So the default mount is a horse, and you can switch it to a melee chariot if you want, or improved melee warhorse. So I definitely recommend trying out the warhorses. It's probably much better, especially after the nerf to the chariots in the last patch. And also it's just thematically, you're playing as the Amazons, go with the cavalry. Or you can give up the cavalry at all, come for this, Sunder armor, which reduce enemy armor. I don't know if this is worth it compared to the horse option. You can decrease the enemy missile parry ability in challenge, speed. Just ignore the side. Go with the horses. And then we have level 13, which we have superior weapons, which gives us extra damage for all units in the army. Very strong. And then you can have increased damage of shielded infantry or increased damage of two-handers. And this depends on how you build your army, but I would imagine two-hander would be the more common build for Penthesilea. Or we can have Chosen of Hermes, which gives us speed. Now this is great too, because if you have a heavy infantry option, this would work well. But if you have a heavy cavalry option, this will work even better. And you can still get more speed in siege battles or more speed in land battles. So of the two, I think siege is probably more common for Penthesilea, because you have to fight those. You can't not avoid siege battles or you get no resources. So I think anytime this is a choice, you go with the siege option. And lastly, we have our final ability, None Left Standing. And this gives us the hero ability of None Left Standing. And once you see here, if you notice, only one that has a rage cost is actually Ari's Rage. Every one so far that we have seen have no rage cost. It's just a, oh, never mind, Terrify has 75. But that's about it. Terrify is 75, and if we go with Ari's Rage, it's 100. But everything else has been just passive abilities, just click and it's kind of activated. So that kind of makes the decision whether you want to get Bloodthirst or not, or go for this Heroic Spirit that will give you this Fear, which is actually very useful in my opinion. You can compound that with Terrify, and you just have to fight a bit to get that 75 Rage. Now, back to here. None Left Standing does not use rage, affects yourself and also allies in 30 meters range, and it gives everyone melee attack and Berserk. So Berserk means you can't control them, but they will automatically attack nearby enemies. So that's kind of the pullback of this ability, but you do get 20 points of melee attack, which like I said earlier, there's really no reason to boost it by 30 or 50% from an earlier ability, because there's so many ways to boost melee attack on most characters and units. And then we have a bigger radius, so effects range goes to 60, or you can have more melee defense on top of melee attack. So I think this is the better option. You pretty much gonna send your army out in Berserk mode, might as well give them as high melee defense and as high as melee attack as you can, and just unleash them. So this is kind of the rage free version, or you can go with the rage heavy version, 100 point of rage or all rage. You get 45 seconds on yourself of increased weapon damage, Unbreakable, Berserk. So you're going crazy again, and you'll cause fear. So a lot of this will become redundant, right? Because if you're causing fear from an earlier ability, the Spirit one, where you didn't go with the Bloodthirsty, you're already causing fear. So this is redundant. Berserk obviously is not great. Unbreakable is good, but you pretty much have high morale already, so you're close to Unbreakable. You get double weapon damage. That is what makes this super strong. 45 seconds, and this is perfect for you to use when you use Divine Challenge. If you went with that build, you pretty much lock down the enemy general for 45 seconds, debuff their armor by 20 points, double your attack, go Berserk, which doesn't matter because for your 45 seconds as you go Berserk, you're in the duel anyways, so you'll be hacking the enemy general to death. And you can increase some of these better to 60 seconds. I don't know if this is necessary. Of course, extra 15 seconds of double attack is great, but you're in Berserk mode for that 15 seconds. Whereas you can go with heavier damage, 150% weapon damage, which I think is probably better because the 45 seconds coincide perfectly with the Divine Challenge. So if you're going with the Divine Challenge build, that is probably the way you want to go. And that might mean you have to forego getting the horseback, but I think you can dismount horses in battle. You can't dismount chariots, but you can dismount horses, I believe. So that way you can still drop down, get a challenge out, kill the enemy general, combine that with your Ari's Rage, which will require 100 point of rage, so you got to figure out how to get that as well. But perhaps if you're committed to going down this route instead of taking None Left Standing, which is still very good because you can boost this to allies, this is only self, you might consider, getting Bloodthirsty instead of this because you don't need the fear here. You get this, you get to 100, lock down enemy general, murder them, cause fear at the same time to everything around you. Pretty good build. And that is pretty much it with Penthesilea. Hope you guys enjoyed this pretty quick overview, and hope you guys will enjoy her factions as a whole. And this will wrap up our day one preview of her. We didn't get to play her campaign at all, but we'll do that in the coming days. Tomorrow we'll be running a similar structure for Hippolyta, her sister. We'll take a look at her skill tree, her units, and everything new with her faction mechanic, and we'll play her down the line as well. So hope you guys enjoyed this one, and see you guys next time. Bye!